Greetings friends, it's your boy Daniel Dragonstaff, and today I wanted to talk about how much monies I made from teaching and performing at festivals this year. I recently did a little quiz on the old Instagram, and it was a topic that a lot of people wanted to hear about, and it's also something that I'm always interested in hearing about when talking to people who teach or perform, especially ones who do it for a living. And to be clear, I do not teach or perform for a living as much as I would love to. I work a 9 to 5 at the airport, fueling up airplanes that they can go skeet-skirt into the sky. I also wanted to make this video because I believe that I have made many mistakes along the way, and I'm hoping that by putting some of these things out there, even though they're kind of personal, that hopefully I'll be able to save some of you young up-and-coming flow artists or fire performers or whatever you want to call it from making some of the same mistakes that I made. Before we get into the dollars and the cents, I do want to give a little bit of a background just because I do think that it is relevant to why this festival season went the way that it did for me. So, quick background, when I first started spinning Dragonstaff in 2016, it was my first flow prop, and I didn't know any other people that spun props or anything like that. I just found it through scrolling Facebook, so it was really just kind of a solo thing for me, at least for the first 14 months, and after 14 months, I found a fire jam in Santa Cruz where I was able to light it up for the first time, which led me to Fire Drums, my first flow festival the following year, 2018. So it wasn't really until 3 or 4 years in that I really started to see opportunities teaching and performing and trying to pursue that as a way of making a living. And I think that I may have gotten the wrong impression because I was seeing all these people's profile pictures that they're going to be teaching or performing at this festival or that festival, and for whatever reason in my brain I just assumed that they must be doing this as like a full-time career or something like that, which is the case for some people and not for everyone, so I'm not saying that it's impossible. That is definitely not the case for most of the people teaching and performing that I have met, including myself. So once I was about 3 years in and kind of made this a goal that I was going to pursue this as a career, I did a really dumb thing, and I highly recommend not doing this. I decided to open up a credit card and basically max out the credit card. I didn't know in advance I was going to max out the credit card, but I maxed it out on going to festivals, specifically flow festivals, so that I can learn, and on props or costumes or whatever I need, fuel, whatever I need to teach or perform or make it to events so that I can learn. And the way I was thinking about it in my head was that it's just like taking out a student loan for a college degree for pursuing a career that you want to do that requires a college degree. So I was like, this requires that I learn these things, fire safety, multiple props, a lot goes into it. So I was just looking at it as I'm taking out a student loan for the career that I'm studying, and sooner or later, this career will make enough to pay back that loan. And boy, was I wrong. Just as I started to get some of these opportunities to actually make some money, I'll be honest, they weren't actually festival gigs. A lot of times they were like corporate events and things. But as soon as I was actually starting to make some money doing what I love, COVID hit. So all of that was taken away, as it was for most of us. And I didn't know if I was ever going to get any of that back. If festivals, at least here in California, were ever going to be a thing again, or if I would ever get to teach or perform again. I thought that might have been the end of an era, basically. But then I'd say around 2022, I started to see a lot of my friends online getting back to teaching and performing and stuff. So I kept applying throughout 2022 and was not getting any replies, or at least any acceptance emails. So I started to wonder why that was, and there were a lot of things that ran through my mind as to why I wasn't able to get back on track. Maybe I just need to build a better resume. Maybe by that time I hadn't taught or performed since 2019, which doesn't really look great. So I was like, maybe I'm irrelevant. Maybe I don't have enough followers. Maybe my rates are too high. And so I basically decided that I needed to rebuild my resume, since I'd basically been out for a few years, even though I was still very busy teaching on Patreon and performing in my backyard. So I went ahead and at the beginning of 2023 applied to just about every flow festival that I could find. I was thinking, if I'm lucky, I'll get accepted to 2, since the year before I didn't get accepted to any. Thought maybe put in 10 applications. If I hear back from 2, that'd be a great way to kind of get the ball rolling again. And to my surprise, of course, they all didn't come in at once. They came in over time throughout the months, but I got accepted to teach at almost all of them except for 2. So I didn't want to turn down any of the opportunities that I had gotten. Now this is where we start to get into the money stuff. In my applications, I of course had a stipend or a rate that I would like for coming out and teaching or performing, as well as my travel covered, especially if I'm flying. And lastly, a compensated ticket, which doesn't really come to mind for me because I can't get into the event to do what you want me to do without that. So that's just kind of a given. I know that's treated as some type of compensation, but it's not really, let's be honest. However, not one of the festivals that I applied to was willing to cover my travel costs or cover the stipend. So all they were willing to give me was a compensated ticket, a +1 for my partner, and if I'm lucky, a free meal or 2. So I'm not saying all of this to kind of like shit on these festivals, because I had really good experiences at most of them. I'm really grateful for the opportunities. I had a hella fun time. But if I was trying to specifically do this to pay my bills, the compensated tickets don't help much when, especially if I'm going to another state. I've got flights, I've got either a rental car, or what we ended up doing was just getting a U-Haul so that it's a rental car and a tent. And of course your Lyft to and from the airport and U-Haul place, as well as gas and food and all those things. So I want to be clear that I am not trying to shit on these festivals, and I am really grateful for those opportunities. And in their email, I could have said that's not going to work, but I chose not to, and that's on me. So hopefully by providing that background in the beginning, you can understand why I made the decisions that I did and why I still took on these gigs without getting any kind of compensation for it, really. But my lesson here is don't do what I did. Another important factor to mention here is that at the beginning of 2023, I started a new job at the airport. So by the time these festivals were coming up, I did not have paid time off. I was still in the probationary period or whatever. So when I did take time off work to go fulfill these obligations, it wasn't just costing me money to go there and eat and do the thing. It was also coming out of my paycheck back home. And I don't know about y'all, but if I take days off work, I need to kind of make that money up somewhere to pay the bills. So I put myself in a really tough spot this year and put myself in the hole a bit that I am now trying to dig myself out of. I also want to be very clear when I talk about these opportunities and events that I taught or performed at. I am not including the Ninja Pirate Spintensive in that. That was not a festival, that was a much smaller gathering. and they actually did cover my travel and stipend, which I can't say for any other event, and these other festivals have a much bigger attendance. So yeah, I think that's enough background and explanations. Let's get to the numbers. This is the fun part. So I'm actually going to be very generous with these numbers here. I did look up the receipts for the U-Hauls as well as the flights and the lifts and the gas, but I'm not covering food in that. I'm not covering, obviously, the money that I lost from not being at work. And a lot of times, we end up getting a hotel either the day before or the day after the event, just so that it's not so jam-packed. Wake up in the morning, pack up your stuff, drop off the U-Haul, go straight to the airport. It's nice to get in the shower before all that. So I'm definitely not including the hotel costs or any of the costs for my partner's flights or tickets or anything like that. These are all just my personal amounts, and I'm also being very generous because I'm not going to include any of the events that I drove to, because the majority of the events that I taught or performed at were in California. I was able to drive to them. Still obviously cost some money to get there and back, but I'm just gonna be extra generous here because I don't want the number to hurt anymore. So I'm gonna exclude those, and I'm actually just talking about the 2 festivals that I flew out for, one being in Texas, one being in Michigan. And totaling up the flights up and back, the U-Haul, the lift, the gas, the total number is $1,263. Again, that's not including California festivals, not including food, and anything else you might need along the way. So that is a very generous number. If we're being realistic, it's probably somewhere over $1,600, but I'm gonna keep it real generous and we'll leave it at $1,263. And in case I didn't make this part clear, $1,263 is how much I'm in debt from teaching and performing at festivals this year. So this video is called How Much Did I Make from Festivals This Year? It should actually be called How Much Did I Lose from Festivals This Year? But I will say, if I was able to pay my bills in great, memorable, life-changing experiences and meeting amazing people and making awesome friends, I'd have multiple mansions, I would have multiple cars. So I feel very grateful. I met some really awesome humans throughout these travels this year, and I wouldn't take it all back if I'm being honest, but going into next year, I will not be accepting just a compensated ticket for any festival. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope that you all got something out of this, and hopefully I'll be seeing you very soon.